Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is passionate about the intersection of sports and technology, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and I am very passionate about the role of technology in shaping the future of sports. And it really applies to this episode 336, with Costa Kladianos, the Executive Vice President and Head of Technology at the San Francisco 49ers. Really enjoyed my chat. I think you're really going to like it, whether you are working on the venue tech side or you're someone that implements strategies and digital campaigns inside a stadium. We talk a lot about implementing that tech, but then also how it affects the customer experience. Appreciate everyone who's left a review. You might have left it on Apple Podcast. I really do appreciate it. Over 100 reviews so far across the globe. If you go to your part of the world and you see very few reviews, it's because the Apple Podcast Store only shows you your part of the world. But trust me, across the world, we've got many ratings and reviews. That does help more iOS fans see the podcast, but also available on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. But the best way I find growth in the podcast is actually you talking about the podcast or passing it on to a friend. So if you've listened to a good episode like this one with Costa and you enjoyed it, I really would appreciate if you passed it on to a colleague, or even better, send it out a tweet. Tag me at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek that you like the episode. All of the growth of the podcast I owe to you, my listeners. So thank you very much for those who have passed it on and forwarded it off privately or publicly. I really do appreciate it. I think you're really going to enjoy this chat with Costa Kladianos. He's the EVP and Head of Technology at the San Francisco 49ers. Very happy to welcome Costa Kladianos, and I hope I've said that right, Executive Vice President, Head of Technology. Costa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. You said it perfectly. Glad to be here. Been following the podcast for a long time, and glad to actually finally get a chance to get on with you here.
Appreciate it, as I normally do. How did you? I normally ask people how they got their start in sports. How did you get your start in the world of sports?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been over 22 years now, and it just seems like an instant. But I actually started part-time in-seat server at it was then called the Air Canada Centre, now the Scotia Bank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, home of the Raptors and Maple Leafs. I actually saw just a position online to be an in-seat server. I'm like, this will be cool, and I started there part-time, got the job, and I was in school at the time in computer science up at York University. And as I finished my schooling, I'd asked my supervisor at the time, I'm like, hey, is there any jobs here? I finished school. I got to do something with my life now. And it so happened that there was a part-time contract position for junior help desk role. I applied for it and interviewed, and I got it. And then kind of 22 years later, I'm here. So in between that, I started in the help desk. Really enjoyed it. Got my chance. Sasha Purich, he was my boss at the time, director of IT there, and he's now at the CTO at the 76ers and Harris Blitzer. I'm sure a lot of listeners know him. He knows everybody. But still my mentor to this day. He really brought me along and taught me kind of the tools of the trade. And, starting, I remember it was my first week or so, and he brought me in the office, and, in only the Sasha big loud way, he's like, I'm not even going to try and do an impression. He's like, yeah, he's like, Costa, he's like, understand the technology. That's super important. But if you really want to get ahead in this business, you got to understand the business. And that really stuck with me. It's amazing, 22 years. And from that time, I was kind of a fly on the wall. At that time, I was the annoying kid who would, sit in on random sales meetings and revenue meetings and just really understand what the business was all about. Because I was a big sports fan, but the sports and entertainment business is completely different and its own beast. So I learned it. I loved it. And then, from there, I moved up and I was in a network engineering role, sysadmin, took over the help desk, kind of learned all the IT areas, and then moved over. I moved out of sports for a little while.
And so, I wanted to ask you that because Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is a gigantic business across all of its different properties, and so it would have given you a real breadth of experience from an IT tech point of view, because you were sort of on help desk and then into the network engineering, and then working with Sasha, you were sort of in that space where the stadium tech was starting to level up year on year. The demands of fans. We've spoken to many guests when the iPhone came along and how that just changed the landscape for sports stadiums. But then you sort of went outside sports into more general IT and looking at sort of corporate infrastructure and those kind of things. That just give you a different perspective on, I guess, the technology needs of business compared to sport.
Yeah, it totally did. And moving it back a little bit, you just, jogged my memory. And I remember at the time we launched the first public Wi-Fi in any stadium in North America. And I remember telling Sasha, I'm like, who's going to bring their laptop to a game? So and he was forward thinking. He's like, no, it's going to be on the phones. It's going to be on the phones. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then here we are. So I did move out into it. And it was kind of a case where I was young. It was like maybe the grass is greener. Let's see what else we can do. And it did give me that different perspective on how other industries work, some other best practices, things like that. But then I kind of realized, so I think sports is in my blood. Sports tech especially is in my blood. And, and I always tell kids coming up, you don't do this for the money. Definitely in our business, you don't do this for the work-life balance because it doesn't really exist. You do this, you have to love it. It's something different and something in you. It gets in your blood. So an opportunity came along at the Canadian Football League. So American rules football, Canadian rules football, 3 downs instead of 4, to be their director of technology. And I kind of jumped on that. And then I was responsible for, on the league side, the Grey Cup, which is actually one of the oldest trophies in professional sports, 100 and something years old, and oldest championships. And again, we did some great things there. We were fortunate to be kind of a testing bed for things that go on in the NFL because it was a smaller league. We could pivot more, which helps me in my current role. But, we started the tablets on the field with Microsoft, with the Surface tablets, worked with Cisco to do some Wi-Fi in stadiums, did some analytics stuff, and really got my feet wet from the league level side and understanding compliance. And then a opportunity there came along with Tennis Canada and the Rogers Cup at the time. It's now called the National Bank Open. It's the largest one-week tennis tournament in the world, so outside the Grand Slams and the BNP Paribas Open. And I wanted the opportunity to really have a stadium under my belt again. I missed kind of working at the league was great, but I didn't have kind of that stadium to call home, and I call it my canvas, where we can paint with by using technology as the paintbrush and tools there. So we had the 2 stadiums in Toronto and Montreal, and we had really a carte blanche to kind of play with new technologies and create some partnerships where we would do things like we worked with wait times when they were starting up to do like wayfinding in the stadium, do some AR activations, some VR activations where you could watch the tennis tournament going on in Montreal while you're in Toronto, because they were at the same time. The women's and men's would interchange at both sides. So doing a lot of cool things like that, and really getting back into the stadium infrastructure side and understanding there where we were going, because Wi-Fi 6 was coming out and 5G was still in experimental phase. So really getting my feet under that, because my love was network engineering. That was where I cut my teeth. So got there, and then we had our good friend COVID hit and shut down the sports industry. Unfortunately, at that time, it was all the revenue for Tennis Canada came from the tournament. So I was a COVID casualty there, as it was most of the organization. But it's great to see that they bounce back and thrive. I still have a lot of friends there in the leadership, and it's a great tournament and a great organization. So it was a little scary at the time that we didn't know what was going to happen, and as we did across the industry, and it's bounced back, which is amazing. Then I took on a position at a multi-sport facility company, Canland Sports, runs world's largest rec hockey leagues and some minor league teams in their stadiums in their facilities across Canada and the U.S. And then came this kind of position. I got a call from from a recruiter and saying, would you be interested in moving your family to another country at a different coast, 3-hour time difference? And I'm like, well, not really. And then they're like, but it's for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm like, absolutely. Jobs in the NFL are very rare to come along. So when you have that opportunity, especially being in the sports tech, to me, that's the pinnacle. And, it's what a tremendous opportunity to do something great at a franchise, at a storied franchise, great team, the ownership, this fantastic family-run business. They want to win. They invest in their people. And, I was lucky enough to get through the interview process, present your strategy, understand how you want to build it. And, a month later, we were on a plane down here, and at our first game, which was actually my first NFL game. And, I walked in with my wife and my 4-year-old at the time. And then she was, she'd been super supportive, and I couldn't have done it without her. But she was still apprehensive a little bit because it's, moving your whole life. And as soon as she walked in, I walked in, and she's like, oh, this is awesome. So that really, really helped it. And then the opportunity to come here was really, the stadium opened in 2014 as the world's most connected stadium. And I think it's been 10 years. And, we've seen the SoFi stadiums, the Legion, and some amazing technologically advanced stadiums in the world pop up in the world. And now being in Silicon Valley, I'm a little bit competitive. I wanted to get us back to that point. And I'm like, what showcase the partner? We're right here. Let's take advantage of all the great tech partners, and let's get it back into that upper echelon of technology to kind of engage our fans, generate revenue and build champions. So
yeah, it was one of my questions around, Levi Stadium. I did note, I went there a few years ago just after opening, and it did open with all the tech bells and whistles, and it was the bright, shiny thing. But the sports technology space is a very competitive space, and then stadiums are a little bit like, getting a new phone or driving a car off the lot. As soon as it's off the lot, like there's new tech coming in, and new competitors coming in. Like, what is the challenge in both to keep, to have that brand, especially in the part of the world you are? Silicon Valley is on your doorstep. You've got all of these, probably the most tech savvy consumers, in the North American market are in San Francisco, and so they have these high tech demands. As much as you want to, have the shiniest tech stadium, it's like you're pretty much doing it because the fans are wanting that experience. And so how do you keep up with that, that technology wave and stay at front of it?
I think to me, I looked at it as an opportunity. I think in other sports and other leagues, there's that challenge for the IT executive to really sell that thing. Like, why do we need the latest and greatest? Is it just the money pit? And you really have to spend a lot of the time justifying it and creating that ROI, where here was already built in. Our fans demanded it. Our corporate partners from around here demanded to create those authentic experiences. So kind of came in with an advantage, and they just needed, some technology leadership to understand where they were going. Because I think the great thing with our leadership is, they're incredibly bright people, and they don't know what they don't know, and they understand that. So it's like, they're great in their areas, but they're like, we need someone to kind of lead this technology, but understand the business as well. So kind of coming in, putting together a strategy with the ROI on it, why, the latest infrastructure is important, how that's going to, power in terms of the activations, what we're trying to do, how it's going to power analytics to generate revenue, how it's going to really grow our business. And I find that if you're able to really quantify that and measure it and give that case, your leaders are there for a reason. They're not stupid people. They're super smart. And if you give them a reason for it, instead of just saying, trust me, bro, doesn't work to get you the latest tech, you have to have the business case behind it. And it helps here that we have the companies around, we have the fans who want it. And it's just kind of pulling that together and creating a cohesive and strategy that makes sense for us moving forward on the technology side.
How do you, it's, making that pitch, but also deciding what technology, how does a good technology partner help you in that process? It's great that they would pitch you and say, hey, here's our product, but what are the qualities of a good technology partner that actually one sees what you want to do, but then also helps you in that, that convincing stage and that design stage to go, this is why the tech is going to work for you and your fans.
Yeah, and that's another one of the great things being here is, some of our biggest technology partners, SAP, Cisco, and Intel, not exactly small startups. So they have the resources, they have the budgets and whatnot to back up. So I would get in a room with the people there, and they would be like, "How can we help you?" And that's not something you hear from a partner. Usually, from my past, it's like, how can you sell our product? But with these companies, it was so refreshing to hear. They're like, we have all these resources. Please use us. What are your challenges in your stadium, and how can we solve them? Because they understand that if they can solve our challenges, our B2B partners can see what they're doing and they can solve their challenges. So, for example, with SAP, we have something called the Executive Huddle here, which is integration, and it's a suite that we have, a working suite upstairs. That's kind of our brain command center that has, I think, over 10 integrations that shows in real time what's going on in the stadium so we can act. So, for example, people who's scanning in with their tickets, where are the lines the biggest? What's going on at our F&B stands? How much inventory do we have? What's going on in retail? What's going on in parking? So we can see what's going on and then react to it in real time. And SAP built that together with us, even going down to 3D printing meters to read water and check our utility consumption in real time during a game. So, and then being able to run that into the HANA cloud and run some analytics on that against previous games with similar configurations. And then not only can we react in real time to what's going on, but post game, we're able to create analysis that to our executive leaders to, what went wrong, what went right, and be able to dig deeper into that to, help our business. So, that's a case with SAP. And then I'll look at Cisco. They're incredible partners. We had an aging back-end network infrastructure, and, they came in with, working with MThink, the integrator, and they're like, okay, this is what we recommend. We open the building. This is what we recommend from a network side. And here's how we're going to help you do it. And, here's why. And it's just working with them it's a breath of fresh air. It's not like I have to pull and push and prod and they're not trying to sell me things that we don't need that, we find there. So and then Intel on their other side, they're again, I came out with a partnership meeting with them, and they're like, we know you have a parking issue at the stadium. Some of our parking lots on one side got taken out for a mixed use development, not related to us. So we have kind of a traffic stuck at one end. So they're like, how can we help? And then they're giving us suggestions, and we're working together. So, to me, that's as a tech professional, that's a playground to have these giants who, they are giants and leaders in the industry helping us solve our problems here, and we're creating, good experiences for them. It's actually a true partnership, because partnership is a cliche that gets thrown around in our industry, but this is actually a true partnership on the tech side. So we've kind of been blessed with that.
We've sort of been talking about the stadium and the fan facing bit, but from when you're looking at technology across a sports business or an organization, it's like there's multiple businesses. There's that customer facing, fan facing. How do we make the fan experience awesome? You've also got, corporate IT, and how do you make sure that everyone can do their work? And that's obviously changed, with more remote working and those kind of things. But then you've also got the operations of, supporting high performance, the coaching staff, all the sports tech, the growing sports tech space of player health and wellness. How do you divvy up your time to, give those different parts of the business, I guess the bandwidth, both, from your team, but also mentally to go, what are what is the tech we should be investing in? What should we be rolling out? How do you balance that in your role?
Remember when we said there's no work-life balance at the top? There's no, I'm kidding. But the most important for me is, even before creating a strategy, actually part of it in parallel, I guess, but at the early stages, is getting a world-class team. There's no way I can do this by myself. And I wouldn't even try to do this by myself. It's kind of coming in and doing a quick analysis and saying, what do we need on a team side? And that involves going to the business and, working with the leadership, working with everyone else, and understanding their needs and their business. And it goes all the way back to my conversation with Sasha 22 years ago, saying, understand the business. Because if you understand the business and what everyone's trying to do, you can then translate that into your team and really get the resources to help you, whether it's corporate IT, whether it's fan-facing stadium, whether it's football technology. Getting the right people in the right place to make the right decisions really helps make my job easier. And if you have the wrong people in the wrong place, it makes it impossible. So I really focus on that and understanding the business the first 90 days, understanding what we need, and build that team around me to help me and help the organization grow and make sure that's adequate. You need buy-in from your leadership. My boss, Peter Wilhelm, our CFO, has been a huge ally and understands, that technology needs to be invested in, and then it's not just a cost center. It's a value generator of the organization. And if you don't have that allyship from your leadership, it's impossible to be done. So he's been great on that point and in supporting us and what we're trying to do. And then on the other side, we're supporting him and helping him and what he's trying to do to move this organization forward. So it starts with team. You divvy it up and you work together. You have and then you work to where you want to go. You have to know where you're trying to go. If you're just trying to make everybody happy all the time, you're going to make nobody happy never. I don't know if that's grammatically correct, but you get my point.
Yeah. I completely understand. I mean, on the bit that I'm both fascinated with and no one ever talks on a podcast about, and I'm fine with that, is that football operations side, because it's like there can be that technology, like it's a different ROI case. It's not like you're saying, hey, we're rolling out this to increase the parking experience, and there's a revenue element to a partner. Whereas, a 1% improvement of, the players or, the performance, can have real big effect on on-field performance. And so, I'm always interested in the off podcast, and sorry to the listeners who don't hear all the cool tech that's being implemented, but is it a different case in that, in that football technology piece to, whether it be injury protection, because, every coach is looking for that 1%. And you've got to, one, implement it, but also help them, understand it and implement it in the best way.
Yeah, I think that this one goes back to ownership. And, again, I go back to our family ownership in New York and DeBartolo families. They're just obsessed with winning and bringing a championship back to the Bay here. And that really helps what we do. So, and they bring in the best staff, the best coaches, the best players, to do that. And at that point, and they're also good coaches understand that technology is there to help them, not replace them. And it's a tool in their toolbox. And I've always come to the point where I'm like, listen, I'm never going to replace a coach's eye, a coach's experience. We're just going to give you another scouting report, which is, another way to make your decisions and what you want to do. You're going to make your own decision in the end with your experience, but this is just another way to frame your work. And same with our sports science department. I have a kind of a background in personal training and sports science, not to the level that the team does here, but it helps to know a little bit about it. And it's always like, listen, I'm not going to replace your experience because I know it's science and an art. We're here to help you with the latest and greatest. And then let's go see what's out there in the market and see how it can help you guys. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's working, sometimes you get caught up in the numbers, but if you're working with the football tech team on a scouting platform or a strength and conditioning platform or something, you get to see a lot of cool stuff that not everyone gets to see and be involved in. And that goes back to why we work in sports. And again, it helps to have an ownership and a coaching staff that is open, willing to do this and willing to try anything. But also again, goes back to as a tech leader, you have to show them, I'm not the guy, I'm not here to try and replace you, because that'll always, even with AI and whatnot, that's impossible. Nothing will replace that human element and experience. We're just here to give you another tool in your toolbox to do your job better and bring us a Super Bowl at the end of the year.
Definitely. And like you said, coaching staff, high performance staff, they're all looking to recoup time back. So if you can implement technology that replaces manual processes or, time laborious processes, and they get more time to, have more one-on-one time with the player and those kind of things. It's those, if I'm nearly getting Al Pacino, if you're fighting for that inch, like all of those things add up over time. I wanted to ask, exciting news recently. The Super Bowl will be at Levi Stadium 2026. The bar keeps getting raised every year. It's going to be in Las Vegas next. What do those longer-term plans look like for a Super Bowl, and what do you do to prepare for one?
Yeah, so super exciting. So not only we have the Super Bowl in 2026, but we'll also be hosting FIFA World Cup games. So we're the first venue to do both in one calendar year. It's exciting, a little bit terrifying because it's a lot. But I mean, we're going to be ready. We're going to really make some enhancements throughout the stadium. Some things that we're working on right now. I mean, on a back end network infrastructure side that we're doing right now. We're going to be the first hyper-converged collapsed core network that AmpThink and Cisco have done in an existing stadium, I believe. They've done it in the new stadiums, obviously, in SoFi and Allegiant. We're the first kind of existing one. Don't quote me on that, but I think we are. But either way, it's a great way to really make sure that the plumbing works in the infrastructure. We just refreshed our Wi-Fi here, 1,400 access points under seat and in stadium. We'll probably refresh it again by that time for the 6E standard. But then there's a lot of areas that we're looking at, upgrading our suite experience, upgrading our club experience, other areas in the fan experience. So, what can we do with, AR and AI coming up? I'll throw out the buzzwords, but this is the future of fan experience and what we want to do. And how can we work on things like we currently have in our app, Ask Sourdough is our chatbot. That I really see as something now with the AI experience that'll explode and become your personal concierge. And what's that going to be in 4 years? So we have a lot of things on the table, a lot of things that are still in the in the conceptual stage that not a lot to talk about because there's a lot of permitting and all that kind of stuff. And we just got it announced, but we work on it. It'll be a totally different experience when you come here in 2026. And we're going to elevate it and welcome the world again to Levi's. And it's going to be a lot of work, but it's definitely going to be exciting.
Terrific. You mentioned AI there. It's obviously exploded just in the last 6 months, and now the implementation and being able to plug it into different places. Things like chatbots, which previously were really coded ways of going through set questions to becoming more natural and, like you said, personalized. What about that? Excites you? What are the opportunities you see using technology like that?
Yeah, I think everything about it excites me. I think there are some people who are scared because what you don't understand, you fear. Just as there's people who are scared of probably the personal computer era, the dot-com era. It is a revolution. It'll help us. It'll really change how we live, work, and play. And with great power comes responsibility. So, it could be used for good. It could be used for not so good. But I think here it can really help us in terms of when we look at moving from real time to predictive in the stadium. That'll help us streamline a lot of our operations from inventory, from where our resources, from employee schedules, things like that. But also on the fan engagement side, you have 3 hours here to forget about your life and have a fun time with your friends, yourself, and enjoy a game. And we want to make that experience less about waiting in lines and getting your stuff and knowing what you want before you want it. So if you come on site and we know you love hot dogs, we know you love beer, we know the type of beer, the type of hot dogs that you want, we'll already have it ready for you. And a frictionless experience so you can spend your time talking to your friends, enjoying the game, and seeing the things here. We talk about AR on the video walls. We want to blur the line between digital and physical, because the fact of the matter is, if you want to watch a sport, you can watch at home with your big nice TV on your couch. So we want to make it something different. We want to make it a day out, and we want you to have a great time here that you can't have at home. And we think that using AI to help us do that is key. It works well already, and we're just scratching the surface with its capabilities. So we want to work with our partners to see how we can embrace it, see how we can elevate that fan experience going forward, especially with 2026 quickly approaching.
Yeah, I think it is a case of, we've gone through that tech of, ordering in seat or pre-ordering and then doing pickup. The natural next progression is, having that demand load, knowing that people are going to go up, that they go up at this certain times to go get a beer, or this is when they go get food, and those kind of things to sort of maybe make those connections, between the fan and the stadium, and getting those two pieces connected will be challenging. It's still, there's still a lot of pipes that need to be connected to get it done. But I could see it being exciting. But then also you said that in-home experience, with Apple, launching their Vision and, the ski goggles, and you can be watching a game on a 100-foot screen virtually. It's going to be really interesting to see how the stadium experience and also the broadcast changes, as that technology develops, if it does. But it's going to be, an interesting way to reach more fans.
Yeah, and I agree. And then not only that, again, that helps us deepen our relationships with our current partners. I mean, you look at the things that SAP wants to do, or Cisco and Intel, and these are the companies that are going to be on the leading edge, currently are on the leading edge, because they're data companies at their core. Cisco's obviously networking, but they do a lot of data on the side and helping companies through that as well, and they provide the infrastructure. So it's being able to deepen the relationship with them and helping what they want to do on stadium, but also, what's the next unicorn that's going to come out of the AI revolution. The unicorn comes out of every revolution, the dot-coms that came out, the PC revolution, the social media. Yeah. So we're in Silicon Valley, so we want to, get in with that and see what else is coming down the pipe and work with our current partners on doing some cool things for our fans. And then you even look at the possibilities on the football side, which we haven't even started exploring yet. It's going to be an exciting few years to see what's happening.
Definitely. Costa, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yes, WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant.
Oh, wow. Oh, terrific. Awesome. That's a piece of history. Oh, WrestleMania is the time that I have been at Levi Stadium. So I attended WrestleMania at Levi Stadium, and what an experience. But it's one of those bucket list items, going to a WrestleMania, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and it's fantastic. It's certainly an event. It's a great time, and that's why I was 7 years old, and I will definitely remember that going with my dad.
Terrific. You would have been a few sports events in your time. Do you have a favorite food or a go-to food at a sports event?
I keep it simple in the classics. My wife calls me boring, but I like to try the hot dog at every stadium or event I go to, because I'm like, if the hot dog's good, then everything else is going to be great, and it gives me something to compare. We have great hot dogs here. Outside of here, I really enjoy Fenway. Dog is something about the history there, and enjoying a hot dog there. You feel like, oh, somebody was doing this and watching Babe Ruth or Ted Williams play, so it's kind of cool.
Terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
The first app I open is probably Instagram, to see what all the people who don't have kids, all the fun they had the night before, and live through them.
I love the honesty. Is there someone that you follow? It might be someone on social media, a colleague or an author or the like, that you suggest the podcast listeners should give a follow to?
Definitely you. Not just saying that because I'm here. Really enjoy the content that you bring out. There's, the classics, Front Office Sports, Sports Business Journal, Sport Techie, all that kind of stuff. And then literally on, off of Twitter and LinkedIn, just people in our industry. It's such a small industry, and everyone has such good things to share. And I find like most of my learnings will come from, like, let's say Todd Kaflish. He's a good friend. He shares some stuff that are cool. Lenny from Tradable Bits, they're pretty active. He shares some stuff. So I really just, I add people on LinkedIn who are, in our industry. Even if I don't know them, I still add them because I know they're going to share some cool stuff that I can't find on myself. So it's kind of a curated link there, and just that's how I learn, and that's where all my best practices, as I call them, or rip off and replace, and that's really how you learn and grow.
No, definitely. We steal with pride, as I would say, and it really is good advice from people to, like, a lot of people don't share their work. Like, hey, this is what we've done, this is what we've rolled out, or this is some tech we've rolled out, because one, you should be proud of it and delivering it, but also it helps the industry, I'm sure you've seen those kind of posts before, and you've gone, oh, I'm going to call Todd. How did you do that? Or, and the same, that learning that people get from throughout the industry helps the industry and lifts the industry. And so, I'm a big advocate for doing that. And, I think more people should be putting their hand up and be proud of their work and just sharing a bit of that insight because, it helps the industry overall.
Yeah, I agree. And there's, and there's so many smart people in this industry, most of them smarter than me. And that's what I love to, see what they're, and I've always, from the beginning, I'll reach out to someone if I'm in a different city and haven't met them, and I'll, call up and say, hey, I'd love to take a tour of your facility, see what you're doing in tech. We haven't met, and that's the one great thing about everyone helps each other here. Someone I've never talked to, they'll take me into their facility, they'll show me, and then we'll not only be friends for life. Like some of the greatest friends I have are from this industry, and we really help each other. And that's why I love it so much. It's such a great little group that we have here in sports tech.
Definitely. Lastly, is there a social media platform that's your MVP? You've mentioned a couple there. Which one is your go-to?
I love LinkedIn. If you can get past the cringy, humble brags, I'm guilty of that myself sometimes, but you have to. But there's some great content on there. Especially on the business side, especially in your industry. If you follow your people and they're sharing the right things, I find that I do a lot of my learning there, and it gets me down some really good rabbit holes of new tech that's out, new just general sports business in there, and I think that's the one that I'm active on most on the professional side.
Terrific. And that is the platform. If I sent podcast listeners your way and they said that they listened to the podcast, enjoyed it, LinkedIn is the place to go?
Yep, that'll be the best place.
Terrific. Well, Costa, appreciate you taking the time, even though you're in the off season. But in technology, there is no off season. There's always new things to roll out, and you've got other games and things coming up. So I really do appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully, we can catch up and catch up soon, and hopefully, I'll be in Levi Stadium sometime soon to say good day.
Yeah, for sure. I missed you last time when you were in San Francisco. I was out of town. I saw that. I'm like, figures he's in here when I'm out of town. But I know the rest of our crew down here took care of you. So I hope you had a good time. And you got to get back here now, and we'll definitely get it going out here.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 2 cohort. Trajectory, Extenet, SeatGeek, Sponsor CX, and Stats Perform. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Costa. As always, I look to share every episode on my LinkedIn and tag the guests like Costa. And I really do appreciate when listeners reach out to guests and say thanks or follow up with a question. So if you enjoyed this, if you geeked out like Costa and I did listening to that conversation, please reach out, say thanks to Costa, connect with him, learn from his experience across multiple industries and now working with the 49ers. I really love the discussion around how technology and customer experience is really merging, especially in the world of sports, whether it be as simple things like wayfinding, or how do we make the convenience of the concessions better, or how do we get to the toilet quicker, or what does ingress and outgress of a stadium look like? I think technology plays a big part of that, and I think fans overall, because they're getting these great experiences both from a digital point of view and from other venues, they're looking for that from sports stadiums. So even if you're in a relatively new stadium like Levi Stadium, it's something that all stadiums are now required to do to really lift that customer experience. Yes, fans are going to go to the game because they love their team, they love their sport, they want to cheer them on, but also they want an uplifted experience. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like in the next 5 to 10 years on what that experience is and how technology can help there. I know it's going to be a big discussion point at SEAT in Salt Lake City as a lot of the venue tech and the geeks get around to have those discussions. But also the bit that I love is getting those digital and data folk into that conversation to be able to say, how can we make this the best experience it can be? So hopefully I'll see you at Salt Lake City for SEAT Conference. If you haven't secured your ticket, please reach out to Josh right now. Make sure you can get one of those last tickets available. And if, hopefully to see you in Salt Lake City or, in my travels to DC and New York City after that. Please reach out. Love catching up with podcast guests and podcast listeners around the world. So if I'm in your part of the world, don't be a stranger. Please ping me, whether it's at Sean Callanan on Twitter or send me a DM on LinkedIn. I'd love to catch up with you. And, I really love the fortuitous nature of me landing in a city and then realising I can message someone and meet up. Really happy to do that with Amir from Zoom. Recently was in New York City. We both found ourselves in New York on the same day, and it was good to catch up with him in real life. So if I'm in your city, please reach out. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.